Guys, Ben Belack, Beverly Hills super realtor. I thought I would take you through today the famed Sunset Strip, where dreams are made and mostly crushed. Right now we are on Sunset Boulevard, which runs basically all the way downtown to the PCH, meaning the Pacific Coast Highway. The ocean's behind us. On our right, if you look up, we're probably too late. That amazing architecture, or I should say that amazing building and feat of architecture, has the Soho House on the very rooftop, and I hang out there quite a bit. It's a private club. You can have food, drinks, and some of the best views in all of Los Angeles. We just kind of passed through the music section of the Strip, where there's the Rainbow Room. Here's the infamous Tower Records, sadly for lease, and the Viper Room, where Johnny Depp used to hang out as a young actor, and sadly we lost River Phoenix to a drug overdose. But so many bands made a name for themselves here on the Sunset Strip performing. As we enter Sunset Plaza, the main artery of Sunset Plaza is Sunset Plaza Drive. So everyone that lives up here in the hills, and we're gonna drive up into the hills shortly, they use the Sunset Plaza commercial area to dine and to shop and to be entertained and to entertain. And we're starting to see, like this AKA Sunset, all these new developments where people can live and call the plaza their home without having to buy an actual house. This place coming up here on the right, the Pendry, I just spoke to the agent representing it. I actually leased his personal residence out recently for $25,000 a month. They just started opening. You can see they're still under construction, and they did over $40 million worth of business in the first week. To our right, one of my favorite places, the Sunset Tower Hotel. You can't go in there and not see 15 celebrities on any given night. And it's not really that important to me, but for those of you that aren't from LA and you're here looking for celebrities, don't go to Sir. So what's so crazy is, like, this place to the left and this other place to the right, I used to party at so hard. Wait, back to that in a second. Here's the famed Chateau Marmont, and literally the neighborhood right around there, some of the homes can get room service from the hotel. Now, I'm gonna do a U-turn up here at Crescent Heights. But what I want everyone to know is that Crescent Heights, north of Sunset, to our left, becomes Laurel Canyon. Laurel Canyon is a super famous and historical part of the Hollywood Hills, where bands like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, all lived and wrote music. And to this day, the neighborhood still has that kind of vibe, and it's one of the only neighborhoods that has that vibe in all of the Hollywood Hills. But yeah, here's the Standard Hotel on the left. Good place to crash. In my opinion, probably needs an update. But as we start working our way back to the glam of Sunset Plaza, you'll get to see some more of these iconic locations where people come from all over the world just to say that they have visited. And I'm lucky enough where I get to just call it my home. Here's the famed Comedy Store, where you've seen recent Dave Chappelle specials. Not a bad commute to work every day. And I do call myself the Beverly Hills super realtor, but I sell a ton in the Sunset Strip. Look at this. I love this building, by the way. This massive live wall integrated into it. I mean, where else are you gonna see that in the US aside from LA, where conservation, health, and vitality is actually incorporated into the architecture in an urban environment. We're going up Doheny Drive, which was named after a very famous oil man and wealthy guy when LA was becoming LA. The reason why the bird streets are called the bird streets is because the streets are named after birds. God, you guys need to pay better attention and have a greater logic set. But you can see this house right here, what the delivery is as far as design and architecture. Now, there's a couple other things I want to say. A lot of people will come to LA and they'll say, I want walkability, but I also want view. Well, to get view, you got to go up, meaning up high. And most of Los Angeles is on a hill. I shouldn't say most of it, but a lot of it, certainly the areas that I sell, they're on hillside. And generally, to get good views, great views, you have to go up these long, winding, narrow roads, way more narrow than the road I'm on now. In fact, I'm gonna show you a narrow street right now. If we go over here, look how narrow this street is. And I sold this house on this narrow road. Look at it, I mean, it's kind of crazy. In this house with the FedEx truck out in front, I sold for nearly $6 million. It's the former house of Mel B and Stephen Belafonte. And look how narrow the street is. And the house traded for $6 million. Now, you can't see how that house unfolds down the hill, but I wanted you to see, you know, what it looks like. I mean, look at this. It's not the sexiest of approach on all of them, but it gives you some perspective. So back on Doheny, which is kind of the main artery and entrance point of the birds, the reason why the bird streets became so valuable so quickly, aside from its proximity to Beverly Hills, is that you get big, explosive jetliner views, but it's a very quick elevation. So you don't have to drive like all the way up these crazy streets. And maybe to some of you at home, you're dizzy already, and I apologize for that. But it's a very fast ride, relatively speaking. And the bird streets has undergone a renaissance of construction, renovation, as LA has really become a place of relative value compared to other metropolitan centers in the world, where the wealthy are spending so much more money for so much less. So you can come here and get an emotional, I'm telling you, an emotional view and pay considerably less. And the good thing, what people like about the Hollywood Hills specifically, is that it feels serene and like a bit of an urban retreat, but it's not isolated from everything. You know, you still are close to the Strip and to anywhere else you need to go. So we're gonna turn left here onto Thrasher, but you can see here, this house straight ahead, for a long time, no one had ever touched a sale of that house, which sold in the mid-30s of millions. It's kind of hard to see from here, but it's a massive modern, massive. This house straight ahead is Keanu Reeves, and you can imagine, if you kind of look through this fence here, how nuts. Look at this. I told you jetliner view. That's what I meant. I mean, it's like you're landing on a plane. So now we're on Blue Jay Way, probably my favorite street in all of the birds. Well, maybe that, or I've got one more. But this house to the right, which you can't really see, a good friend of mine developed with his family, and the owner of MedMen, which are likely coming to a town near you, which is like the Apple Store of weed dispensaries. He bought that, I think it's about 7,000 square feet. He bought it for $11 million last year, and he just put it on the market for $12 million. My guess is that he's selling it. By the way, you guys can check out a little Ferrari delivery here on the left. In case anyone needs a Ferrari, they're just dropping one off here. So I think that the reason why, quick little Maybach, Rolls Royce. But yo, my value peeps with a Kia, you dig? So the one thing is, I think, my guess is the reason he's probably selling is because there is a massive development, which you just saw being built right in front of him. They're gonna block what view he has. It is very uncommon for someone to sell a house a year later. On our left, you look over at Truesdale, one of the most important parts of Beverly Hills, and expensive, and in some cases to the ocean, like you can imagine from the roof of this property. And then on the right-hand side, you can, like, here, let me just back up for a sec. If you look through this gate, you can see how you are literally on top of the world up here. But it was a quick ride. It only took us like 8 minutes. $15 million house represented by our friends and colleagues at the agency. Not surprised. I actually really like that house. And then as we continue up the hill here, this house coming up on the right with kind of this black roof, 1616 Blue Jay. Wow, they really changed it. I like it so much more. I sold this house with my old business partner for $12 million when it was new. And we had, at that time, it was a massive number for a house that small. It's about 4,000 square feet, so it's 3,000 a square. So as we go left onto Oriole here, told you guys, see birds. We're gonna pass by a listing that we had listed. Look at this, look at that door. Crazy, right? We're gonna pass by a listing that we had listed for, I believe, 35 million. We brought the owner 33 million and they turned it down. A little bit of an Obama homage right there, loving that. This is the house coming up right here, straight ahead. We had this listed in the mid-30s. We brought them 33. They passed, and then it ultimately sold, I think, in like just under 20. They'll regret that. Now, this street is insane. Obviously, you can see the view, and what you can see is that it's not just city like the other side. You can actually see the country club in the background, the ocean, but all this green. And some of these views on this side of the birds are similar to Truesdale in that you've got all the trees of Beverly Hills in the foreground of your view, and it's like LA's version of a Central Park view. See all this? And what you can't see right now is there used to be a house here, which was Dr. Dre's house. And it's been torn down. You can see it's a sick promontory. Well, I guess you can't see, it's being blocked. And I heard the owner's building something for themselves. It's not a spec house that's being sold. Now we are entering Doheny Estates, which the neighbors up here, look, to me, this is still the bird streets. I don't care what anyone says, but the neighbors have been trying to get a gate up here for some time. They've been talking about it. Look at this massive. I didn't even finish. I just said it's massive. But to me, this is still part of the bird streets. I love Doheny Estates because Jennifer Aniston used to call it home. There are sidewalks, the streets are wide. This house, by the way, up here, just traded in the 20s. It started in the 30s, but that's what happens when you don't have a 30 view. It trades for less. One of the coolest garages I've ever seen in that house, ever. Now this street here on Robin, there was a major transaction recently where one buyer bought these two neighboring properties, one in the 40s and one in the 30s, right next to each other. And as you'd expect, insane in the membrane views. Oh, the door's open, guys. If anyone wants to just go right in. So here's one of those houses. And then here's the other one. Look at the handles on the door. You can't even really see it. So both of those homes just traded next door neighbors. So I showed this house like 6 years ago, or yeah, about 6 years ago as a pocket for $30 million to a buyer from Singapore who was coming here, and he was having me show him stuff. And it's a big developer in LA who built that house, and he built that house for himself. So instead of being like real specky and vanilla, he built it for that time, like all the best materials. But what I love about Nightingale, I said Blue Jay was my favorite, and I had one other. Nightingale was the other one. What I love particularly about the street is, I mean, look, you're still getting these insane views straight ahead. The thing is, though, I will say this. It's hard to sell a house for 30 million bucks on the street because the view is like you have to go out and kind of look left. So because the view is not like right in your face right away, it diminishes the value. And that's why pricing in the hills is so nuanced and not like what you see, you know, like you'll see a Zestimate. How are you able to tell like what this house is, let's say, for example, versus what this house is looking at? Algorithms, mathematical algorithms on consumer-based sites just can't account for these these visceral responses, the visceral responses people get to the orientation of view or the type of configuration. How about that shot of downtown? The one thing I will say about that house is it had one of the coolest pools I've ever seen for the hills. But look, you can see so many of these hills are like built into the hillside. But still, you know, we're not at that high of an elevation in the hills, and because the streets are wider, it's a little bit easier of a drive down. So with that, guys, you can look at me, and I'm going to snap my fingers, and we're back on Sunset. See, I told you it wasn't that long of a ride. Anyway, guys, I have to cut this short because I need to go pick up a contract in the flats of Beverly Hills for a new listing that I'm bringing on that I'm so excited about. But if you like that tour and you want to see other neighborhoods, just put it in the comments below. You want to see Santa Monica, you want to see Beverly Hills, you want to see Bel Air, we'll take you. As for now, I need you to smash the like button so we get great placement with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe so we can keep getting you more free content.